Good. Are we good? We got some feedback somewhere. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to you online and welcome to everybody in the room today. Thank you for being here of our public board meeting of September. We'll call the meeting to order. Consideration of today's agenda. Any additions or deletions to the agenda today? Thank you. Can we have somebody approve the agenda? Cindy, all those in favor? Dennis, thank you. We'll have Tasha do our acknowledgement at this time.
Good morning, Tasha Otway-McClay, Ward 6. We are here together on Treaty 6 territory and Métis homeland with our Indigenous and Métis brothers and sisters whose ancestors have been in relationship with this land since time began. We recognize and thank the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, Inuit, and Dakota Sioux for their care of, love for, and stewardship of this beautiful and giving land we gather on and share together.
Thank you. And also, I'd like to just take a moment here to, we've had in the last few weeks, a sad thing happen to a former trustee and in the name of Liz Cole, and her funeral was last Friday. But I want to mention here today a few words because this is where Liz spent a lot of time, is in this room. She was a board member for a long time, an advocate for public school, an advocate for all kids, and those that have are involved in that and commit their lives to it know how much work that can be and how much time that needs to be. But I think with Liz, it didn't relate to times, just did. And we have over the years, she's left some memories and some processes within our school board and our division that are related to day with all our kids today. And I think that her contribution to that is huge, and we'll all miss her. And if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to take about 30 seconds of silence for her, please. Okay, thank you very much. Reading and approving of minutes. 4.1, approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of August 24th. The motion to accept those minutes as presented. Irene? Thank you. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. 4.2, approval of the minutes of the organizational meeting of August 24th, 2022. Can I just have a motion to accept them? Tasha, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. 4.3, approval of minutes of the regular meeting of August 24th, 2022. Motion to accept as presented. Trish, all those in favor? Thank you. Presentations. Do we have any presentations today? None on the agenda. Reports from senior executive. 6.1, correction, fuel price contingency program reinstatement update. Lillian, sorry.
Good morning, Associate Superintendent Corporate Services. This is an update to the memo that was presented at the August 24th, 2022 meeting. I'm not going to go through the entire memo, but there were the numbers highlighted. The public school division received a total payment of $143,729, corrected from $413,729 for the fuel price contingency program in July. This amount was divided between the total kilometers traveled between March and June 2022 for all buses. This resulted in an approximate payment of 21 cents per kilometer, which is corrected from $3.75 per kilometer.
Any questions? Stacy?
Stacy Bugle, Ward 5. Just curious, is this a correction just on our end, or was this a correction to our contractors?
Liliana?
It was a typo in the memo and a miscalculation on our end, but those are the real numbers we received from the government. And that's what was distributed.
Janine?
Janine Pequin, Ward 1. Is the fuel contingency program still in effect for this school year?
Liliana?
Yes, it is. The approximate amount is 300,000 that we will receive this year. I'm not sure when it's going to be doled out to us, but it's in place by the government.
Thank you. Okay, 6.2, Alberta Education Approval of Reserve Strategy. Liliana?
On March 24th, 2022, Alberta Education released the funding manual for the current year. A significant change in the funding manual was the release of the reserve policy that the government is implementing. This resulted in a significant amount of work for the board to make sure that our reserves and our cap on our reserves is aligning with what the government is asking us to do. And the cap is currently set at 3.69 of the operating budget. The reserve policy, the reserve strategy was submitted by our board to the government, and it was approved as submitted. And the only correction to that is the fuel price contingency program of $555, and that's technically an in and out adjustment. So what's given us as a top up is increasing our amount in the reserves. So we're happy that we received that, and we continue to work with the government for the step 2, which requires us to get the ministerial approval to get an exception from the cap. So 2 steps. They're kind of interconnected. I didn't understand how one can be approved without the approval of the other, but we're working. So then.
Thank you. Any questions? We have a letter on file from the minister too on that. So, okay, 6.3, new curriculum implementation update.
Thank you, Chair. Shannon Campbell-Rekma, Director of Education Planning. We just wanted to keep you informed that there's been a series of professional learning activities that have been designed to support teachers with new curriculum implementation. Along with a partnership with Alberta Regional Professional Development Consortia and events hosted centrally here over the summer, we continue to support teachers with a series of planned professional development activities throughout the year. I wanted to just highlight that we are indeed piloting the French immersion, language arts and literature for K-4 teachers this year. In terms of intervention funding, we will see a continuation of access to grant funding, and this will support students who were deemed at risk from last year. So students that qualified for support will continue to receive support this year at a lower funded rate. That being said, excuse me, as always, we will continue to support students as needed in our schools.
Thank you. Any questions? Get off easy, Shannon. Hey. 6.4, HEPA filter update. Liliana.
Liliana Levegant, Associate Superintendent, Corporate Services. On March 23rd, 2022, the board approved the school ventilation project for the school division in the amount of $450,000. The project had a gradual implementation depending on the type of equipment and the structure of the buildings that we have. To date, the project is 75% complete, and the remainder of the effort is mostly through the installation of UV lamps, which is the alternative to the HEPA filter systems. And that's constraint is due to the structure of our ceilings. Costs to date are 302,000, and the remainder of the costs will offset in 22-23 with the grant that we received from the government for 93,000.
Questions? Stacy?
Stacy Bugle, Ward 5. Just out of curiosity, are we seeing any differences? I mean, it's hard to judge whether this is being, if this is helping reduce the spread of illness within our schools. But I know that in the media, we've been seeing quite a bit out of Edmonton Public Schools and various areas, particularly in the North Zone, with high absentee rates. Do we have any idea? Because I know that our division is one of the few that invested in this, and I think that's a really positive thing that we should be sharing. Just wondering if we have any actual data.
Shauna?
Shauna Warren, Superintendent. Great question. Thank you. We do have a great amount of illness in our schools, just like all other boards across the province. However, a positive for us is we have, as you know, historically with Alberta Health Services, whenever our schools get to a 10% absenteeism, and they have categories of what is tracked. And so prior to COVID, it would be if there's anything that's rash or certain types of, it could be respiratory or whatever. And if you hit that 10% threshold in that category, you call AHS, every school has a number, and you report that, and then they follow you. So I have to say, because I've seen in the media with Edmonton Public Schools of how many they've have absence, we do have one school that is on respiratory outbreak because they reached the 10%, but we have had only one, and that is Nemeo School, who's currently being tracked right now. And so because again, it was indicated it was respiratory. And so, but I would say that's a positive because yeah, one school, let's knock on wood and hope. And I guess that's how we'll continue to track to see how our schools do with the filters in place.
Cindy?
Cindy Briggs, Ward 2. Liliana, can you let me know what locations still need to be finished around our division?
Liliana?
We have various classrooms in various schools, so it's not one particular school. But the intention is to finish it right away. So in talking to the operations and maintenance staff, they intend to finish it before November.
Yes.
I just want to say I really like this program, and it's not just about the illness, but I think it's really important for our kids to be breathing clean air as much as possible.
Thank you. I wonder if there's is there an opportunity here to brag about this, about our schools being? You want to answer that? Liliana?
It's hard to quantify the effectiveness, and even at the beginning of this project, we did a lot of research, and it was stated to us the same. It's hard to quantify and measure the effectiveness of the program. I also would like to remind everybody we went through the summer, so students just came back in schools. The ventilation system is shut down through the summer, so we don't utilize the filters when it's not needed. And it's also depends from class to class. Some of the classrooms are not fully utilizing the ventilation system, so the system is as good as it's functioning, and the results are not really that evident to say anything concrete.
Well,
I would encourage, and we are being recorded, and this is our public board meeting also, but I would encourage trustees, because we did have the big memo that announced it in the spring, And so I feel that this is something as you bring forward to your school councils to bring attention to your school councils to say, you know, there was a HEPA filter update provided at the public board meeting and to remind everybody, because I think it's important that people are aware.
I agree, especially now that it's just about finished product. Just about. I think it's time to make sure our students and our parents understand that we've done a big part and spent some money on trying to do the best we can at this time. So there's an opportunity, great. 6.5 preliminary enrollment numbers. Liliana.
The preliminary numbers that you have in your package are as of September 12th, 2022. Tomorrow, we're doing the third and final count of the enrollment, and we are required to submit that to the government. And we're currently dealing with the conflicts. So we have a number of issues that we need to resolve before we finalize numbers with the government. So in the September 12, 22 enrollment count, the highlights are the current enrollment are 5,115 students. The division enrollment count compared to last September has gone up by 84 students. That's a 1.65% increase. Compared to the budgeted enrollment projections, enrollment is slightly lower by 35 students, with various up and down fluctuation at each of the school sites. The biggest growth of the school level when compared to the budgeted amounts are at Redwater, 18%, Bonaccord, 8.8% increase, and Gibbon School for 7.4% increase. When compared to Alberta Education Frozen Count, these are the numbers that Alberta Education is tracking, and they consider them frozen at a point in time, at a certain time in history. I believe that was in January of 2022. And this is the number that they monitor for the enrollment growth fund. We are up by 74 students, which is 1.47%. This threshold is slightly under the 2%, which is the minimum that we require in order to receive a top up. So unfortunately, we don't anticipate a top up for the enrollment growth.
Any questions? Cindy.
Cindy Briggs, Ward 2. How does this enrollment count compared to prior COVID? Do we have those numbers?
Liliana.
This is off the top of my memory. We're tracking pretty close to what we have pre-COVID. I don't have that information available, but I will be happy to provide it at a future time.
Thank you. Stacy.
Stacy Buger, Ward 5. I know that these numbers are from September 12th, which is still fairly early in the month. When I was at the Learning Center, she was saying that she's guessing closer to 100 enrollments for the learning centers, which is nearly double what's recorded here. Could be an extra 50 students. Will that push us closer to our 2%, or are we still falling fairly short? Or do they count the same way?
Shauna.
Shauna Warren, Superintendent. It's a great question, Trustee Buga. And so the thing about our learning centers is you have to remember is they're gaining 100 new students or getting 100 students. They're often concurrent enrollments, which means that they're either a Sturgeon Comp kid or a Redwater student, or somebody upgrading. So they're taking one course. And so they have to actually qualify as a full-time student in order for us to add it to our total numbers. So yes, the magic number, it's kind of like our little people who come part-time, they only count as a half. I also do want to say that at first we did think we would hit the 2% for increased funding, but sadly we did over project our numbers in our SPVA. And the reason for that is because other divisions in the last 5-6 months have all jumped on board to provide online options. And so that was an error on our part. It was a misjudgment on what we would do, because as you can see, for most of our schools, we are up. And it's a very positive. So sadly, we didn't quite get there. So if you want to do some shouting from the rooftops, we have a few more days to get some bums and seats.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay. 6.6, provincial screening assessments.
Thank you, Chair. Shannon Campbell-Requa, Director of Education Planning. So this year, we are testing all grade 2 and 3 students using Alberta Education, pardon me, recommended assessments. So we will do the Castles and Colthart, the CC3, which tests emergent literacy skills, and the Alberta Numeracy Screener, which of course tests mathematics skills. And then in January, we will also see testing of our grade 1 students with the addition of the letter name and sound test, the LENS. This information will be used at the school level to inform teacher practice and to ensure that teachers can be responsive to the needs of the students in their own classes. Parents are able to exempt their child from these assessments if they deem that is not in their child's best interest. And there can also be an application from the school to the superintendent to make exemptions. In that case, though, we as a division have ensured that parents will be part of that process. Thank you.
Asha?
Asha Maclay, Ward 6. So recently I was at Nemeo and Guthrie's school councils, and there seems to be a great deal of confusion amongst parents regarding this process and what we're doing and whether or not, I think the underlying theme is my child going to get what they need? And, you know, because we're kind of bouncing around in grade levels, I couldn't answer that reasonably. So I'm wondering, do we have in place plans or processes to track or correct learning loss that happened over the last couple of years, kind of through our schools? What is our position?
Kevin?
Thanks, Shannon Campbell-Requa, Director of Education Planning. So each of our schools have in place specific plans to support student needs regardless of the provincial screening assessments. In the past, those have looked like things like Fontes and Pinnell, guided reading process, and the MIPI, which is a numeracy screen that students in grades 2 to 9 would participate in. The fundamental idea here, though, is that all students have access to an understanding of where they are beginning, and then we focus on strengths. Individual schools would have different approaches to meet the needs of the schools in their building, so it's hard to speak from a district perspective. But I know in many places, support from learning coaches has been instrumental in ensuring that students are receiving support both in their classrooms and in targeted interventions.
Any more questions? Thank you. Oops, sorry, Stacy.
Stacy Bugle, Ward 5. Just a comment to Tasha directly is that at my MPS parent council, we had some of the same questions of how this is working. And we were lucky enough to have our learning coach present. And she basically said that it's just an addition to what we're already doing. And we're very much have always been testing our kids and making sure that they're standing up to where they should be, and then implementing those targeted resources. So she at MPS at least, and I assume that this is probably happening throughout the division, is that it's really an additional screening, but really our teachers have been doing this always. So I think parents should be reassured that way.
Shauna?
Yes, and every year as you see the individual school education plans that come up, you will see that. And so trustees, again, if you need some wording or support on this as to what to bring back to your school councils, and I do appreciate that a learning coach was there to speak, and that might be something that we do bring forward to our schools to make that suggestion that the learning coach come and speak to as to how that is addressed. But this is education and this is what we do. And we look at our kids at the beginning of every single school year, and we target those children to see where they're at. Our job is to cover the curriculum and get children to grade level and beyond. And so it's what we do. And so we have to encourage and reassure our parents. These additional screening tools have been brought to us from Alberta Education. So we were doing, as Shannon referred to, we already were doing great things. And so these are just additional and some changes. And, but I really thank you, Trustee Buga, for bringing up that the learning coach was at a school council meeting, because I think that's very valuable. So they can speak to that, and it will help to have a more open communication to parents as to what is happening. So thank you. Great questions.
Cindy.
Have we had very many parents exempting their students?
Shannon.
Thank you. Shannon Campbell-Reckla, Director of Education Planning. Because it's done directly at the school level for the parental exemptions, I don't have those numbers. I could report back if that's something you want specifically. I
don't think I needed to be reported back. I would hope they would understand the benefit of having this done. So I would hope they wouldn't exempt their children and understand the benefits.
Shannon. I'm putting you first, Shannon.
Thank you. Shannon Campbell-Reckla, Director of Education Planning. When we look at the exemptions that have come forward, have been presented for exemption to our superintendent, the numbers are quite low. So.
Shauna Warren, Superintendent, and thank you, because it's a good clarification to ask Trustee Briggs. And so because these are screenings and it's not a year-end PAT diploma, it's just that parents have to have the option, and really it's that. And because we would hope, and maybe there needs to be clearer communication if parents aren't quite understanding, because this is what we do. The screening is done so we can see where children have their gaps. And so the actual exemptions will be few and far between, but parents do have the option that they can say they actually don't want their child to be screened.
Did you have something?
Well, I did, and this is further to the parents and information to the parents. When we do the screening, and a lot of it is school-based, if a child is slightly behind, but would we pass the information on to the parents that perhaps if they could spend a little more time reading with the child at home at night, or do some little interventions like that, that would be helpful? Do we share that information with parents, or is it just in the school that we have to take care of it?
Shannon.
Thank you. Shannon Campbell-Reckla, Director of Education Planning. So again, because it's done at the school level, I can't speak specifically to like general numbers. However, it would absolutely be in our recommended and best practice for when we have identified a student with gaps, there would be open communication. And so that is certainly a message that we've been sharing with administrators and with learning coaches as we've rolled out this process, because that communication is central to having an impactful intervention, regardless if it's coming from this Alberta screen or the classroom work itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. 6.7, renaming of disability services. Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. John Conrad, Deputy Superintendent. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, and I apologize I can't be with you, but I seem to have caught one of these colds going around our schools. I wanted to share with the board for information that we've had a name change for our disability team, and really it's a celebration and recognition of the work that they've been doing with our families that have young people with great needs. I know that Helen, and I see that she's here in the meeting, and she's come to you, she's shared with the board the work, the critical work that she does in our communities, supporting families with children that have very complicated needs. And because she's part of our school, she also helps our schools understand those kids better and understand, how we can approach and work and support those children and connect with the families better. So this report is for information that we've changed the name from Disability Services to recognize that they support homes, they bring hope, They support the independence of young people in natural environments. So they're renaming from disability services to SHINE. That's an abbreviation from what I just said, supporting hope and independence in natural environments. SHINE Beyond Limits is the way that they are celebrating the work they do and in our communities and advertising themselves with that new name. And we wanted you to know that because we know that you're, I hope, ambassadors of this great group, talking to families. And so you're not caught off guard. Who is this SHINE team? Well, the SHINE team is this great team that Helen runs that used to be disability services that we're now calling SHINE Beyond Limits. Administration's prepared to answer any questions or anything specific. Maybe Helen could come and answer something specific too.
Thank you, Jonathan. Irene?
Green Gibbons, Ward 7. It's not a question, it's more of a shout out. The Shine Find Your Village is back up for the school year. So October 12th, here in Mornville at 9:30, they are doing like coffee conversation, and they always have food. All are welcome. Helen will send Jonathan the link for that, I'm sure. And then they do an online one at 8:30. And they do bingo on the online one. So.
Tasha?
Tasha Otway, Maclay, Ward 6. I just wanted to say that, you know, we talk all the time about the importance of words and what we're conveying. And I just wanted to say how happy I am to see that we are taking, we're reframing what this team does and how and who they serve. So I really, really appreciate the positive reinforcement for the program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan. And Helen, thank you. Okay. Renaming of goals program. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. John Conrad, Deputy Superintendent. It's another for your information. You are well aware of our goals program that has been centered in Nemeo and Sturgeon Comp and expanded to Redwater School. When those very specialized programming, well, I'm going to use that word again later, sorry. When that programming began, it was definitely centered on building life skills for young people in our schools that needed that work. However, we did a pretty significant audit talking to the families that are involved in the program, families that have been in the program and left the program, and we saw a need to change the way we talk about this program and change the way our students are supported through this program. So in recognition of that, we're no longer calling it an isolated program, goals in Nemeo, Sturgeon Comp, and Redwater. Instead, our counselors, our admin, and these highly qualified teachers in these programs are going to talk about accessing specialized programming. And the specialized programming is really more on a spectrum of what the child needs. And this allows us to remove some of the barrier of, I'm not sure I want my child to be in goals or not in goals, because that's sort of an isolating in or out. Whereas now we want to talk about, oh, you know, your child could access some of this programming for morning and then access regular programming or optioning in the afternoon. There's more fluidity into the supports the child needs with the specialized and very qualified teachers and EAs, and also, you know, less barrier to access other programming in the schools. So you're not sort of in or out. And with that, we've expanded some of the higher level of specialized programming into Four Winds and Ochre Park as well. So This is also a bit of a rebranding, but it's also a different approach to trying to support our young people with significant needs within our school in a way that better matches their needs and creates the environment with the least restriction and the most ability to access other parts of our school. So that is why we are no longer going to be talking about goals. Instead, specialized programming in our schools, knowing there are still very highly specialized programming at Nemeo, Sturgeon Comp, and Redwater. Admin is prepared to take any questions on this information.
Stacy?
Stacy Beaver, Ward 5. I guess just more a comment, because my experience is more with Four Winds, who has a bit, hasn't had the rigid kind of goals program in it. It's been a bit more flexible. But what I've seen and what I've heard from parents is amazing things that are happening with those targeted supports. And a lot of our parents at Four Winds still call it goals. But I think not having that in or out choice is going to be a really strong benefit for the kids as well, just because they see each other as goals kids or not goals kids, and there's a stigma around it as well. So with specialized programming, I think that opens the door for the kids as well as the parents being able to access more programming without any barriers. So I think this is a great choice. Thanks.
Agree. Any other questions? Thank you. 6.9, school bus operation regulation changes. Lillian.
Liliana Levacant, Associate Superintendent, Corporate Services. Alberta government changed two regulations effective September 1st. The first one, under the use of highway and rules of the road regulation, will allow, actually it allows the school buses to drive at the posted speed limit on Alberta highways instead of the previous limit at 90 kilometers per hour. It is assessed that this change will increase the safety on the road. And the other amendment that was implemented in the operating, licensing, and vehicle control regulation removes the requirement for the S endorsement for people like mechanics when they move buses around, or when future drivers that are taking the test, they don't require to have the S endorsement as long as they don't travel with more than 2 non-student passengers in the bus.
Thank you, Liliana. Any questions on that? Janine?
Janine Peckman, Ward 1, not so much a question as just a highlight of advocacy. Transportation departments have advocated for this. ASBA has advocated for this. PSBAA has advocated for this. So as partners in education and in whatever, when we come together, advocacy sooner or later sometimes works. So this is the sooner or later it has sometimes worked, because I have heard about this since I've been a trustee at ASBA. So it's been on their position papers and it has finally helped. That's just my comments.
Yeah, and just so everybody understands, taking the S endorsement away isn't, the MELT program is still there. That's what's replacing it, really. So it's become the next stage of advocacy. So now we do that at a proper rate and be able to provide that easier than we can today. I just want to mention it here too, just I don't know why here, but just for everybody's sake, when we're talking about school bus net, but 70 kilometers has been changed to 50 kilometers on 38 and 37 there. So I finally got that done. So I went to a transportation board meeting and asked why it wasn't done yet. Anyways, it's done. I see it's done. So 6.9, oh, sorry, just did 6.10, school resource officer, Sturgeon Comps High School update. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Jonathan Conrad, Deputy Superintendent. For your information, an update on we are part of a tri-party agreement to have a school resource officer part-time within Sturgeon Composite High School. Due to the COVID pandemic, RCMP were unable to fulfill that part of the contract, and we weren't held accountable to any financial obligation during that time. Now we are back, and we are thankful that they are able to fulfill that part of the contract. The regular officer actually is Constable O'Donnell, but they are away on a paternity leave all year. So as the memo informs you, we're going to have an officer for semester 1 at the composite, and then later semester 2. And currently, I've talked with Principal DeVolder, and she's very happy to have Constable Pierre Lajol with them. And it will now be important to build relationship. I would just indicate to the board the greatest efficacy of having a school resource officer available to you is to build relationship with students, to look for ways to come into classrooms and have non-threatening conversation about, supporting young people or other ways, that our community needs our young people to be. And with those relationships, then when things are harder, then they can really be a support for admin and for the students. So now it's certainly up to the school to ensure the constable is visible and visiting with students and having those conversations, so that if there's some hard time support needed, it can still be respected by the students and the staff. Admin is prepared to take any questions on the SRO agreement.
Thank you, everybody. 6.11, teacher salary settlement funding. Liliana.
The new collective agreement was ratified by Alberta Teacher Association and Teacher Employer Bargaining Association. And Alberta Education will be actually started to already provide money to compensate for the salary settlements. This agreement includes 0.5% salary increase effective the ratification date, a 1.25% salary increase in September of 2022, and a 2% salary increase in September 2023. As a result, for 21-22, which is the year that the agreement was ratified, a lump sum payment of $10,560 was made in September to cover for that cost, which is 0.5% increase. The lump sum is calculated based on the June 10 to June 30th period. For 22-23, Sturgeon Public School Division will receive a total amount payment of $539,180 to cover 1.25% salary increase starting September 2022, and it's made payable to us over 12 months. The allocation also includes the cumulative 0.5%. So, and then in next year, we don't have any information if it will be topped up by the government or it's going to be part of the regular budget submission.
Stacy.
Stacy Bugle, Ward 5. I guess I just want some clarification or confirmation that the funding that's coming from the province to cover these increases, that's not getting clawed back out of reserve or accessing our own funds, is it? I just heard kind of all sorts of things. So, thanks.
Liliana.
That is correct. That's additional funding on top of everything we've received so far.
Okay, thank you. 6.12, transportation update summary. Liliana.
Liliana Leicont, Associate Superintendent, Corporate Services. The division currently has 69 buses running under 18 contractors, and we are in the process of finalizing one additional route in the Bon Accord area. Over the course of 22-23 school year, transportation services will be completing a more in-depth analysis of all the evidence that we have on how we're running our transportation services And this will assist in the preparation of the budget for 23-24. Excuse me. So in preparation for that, we are potentially looking at implementing walk boundaries in the town of Morinville and the town of Gibbons to help address the overloading concerns and the funding shortages, and incorporate that in the current 2.4 kilometers. There's also have been instances where bus operators have conversations with parents, guardians outside of division communication protocol. And these conversations have caused some concerns and additional pressures. The division will continue to work with all the contractors to ensure that the communication is in line with the board vision. The division receives many transportation requests for Namao and Guthrie students to access Sturgeon Comp High School buses to get to their respective schools. So in the past, we used to have buses that collect the students from throughout the division, and they would go to Sturgeon and that Sturgeon Comp and then continue to Namao and Guthrie. During COVID, we suspended this activity and reverting it will increase significantly the congestions at those schools and decrease the safety that we would like to provide to our students during the bus rides. So currently we have specific buses that are running to Namao, Guthrie. And that's all we are bringing forward at this time, with more information to come in November.
Shauna Warren, Superintendent, and I would just like to add, I do want to thank Amy. I've asked her to do a deep dive. And as promised to the board, we will bring information to you well in time for you, so you have time to make the best decisions. However, that being said, Alberta Education has indicated to us that they are re-looking at how transportation is funded, and they have indicated that the new model for funding transportation will be in place for the 23-24 school year. And so Amy is also aware of that. However, we have to assume with what we have right now, we'll bring forward ideas. And of course, this will all be pending what the new funding model looks like for 23-24.
Thank you. And just on that a little bit, we had a private meeting with the minister, myself and Shauna, and we've been, Janine talked earlier about advocacy. We've been advocating some changes to how the funding formula is for buses. And one of those changes is the administration put a great report together on the effect of under 2.4 kilometer students and what it means to us. And it was pretty thick and very lengthy and very inclusive of all. But when we were in the meeting, I mean, she commented on that because we brought up transportation and talked about that a little bit. And she said that she was quite pleased with that report, and they were seriously looking at some of the options that were presented for under 2.4, and that things like crossing a highway or going down a dirt road and no lights and all that stuff, no sidewalk. So there may be, hopefully in the near future, something coming out with that helps us a lot. So, because that is busing some of our kids, and they need to be bused. It's reasons they need to be bused. Under 2.4 is a big part of our funding being lighter than it should be. So I just want to bring that up so everybody knows. Tasha.
Tasha Otway McClay, Ward 6. First, thank you, Shauna, for requesting a deep dive into the transportation services. I'm wondering though, if you have any information or if you can speak to at this time, what sort of metrics are you using for the cost analysis?
Liliana.
So we will be looking at providing details on the routes, if the routes are safely accessible. So even though they might be under 2.4 kilometers, we will provide enough information to show if there is a safety concern, like crossing a railway road or the condition of the road that they have to travel. And also we're looking at maybe some alternatives of how to provide walking safe environments for students to school. And in terms of what the government under the current model is providing, we'll make sure that we provide all the information that reflects what we get from the government to find what kind of programs we have going. Thank you.
Sean?
And thank you. I'll just add to that. So, and Amy is on, so Amy will hear it again. I did ask Amy as we started this process, I asked her, because this is her world, I asked her to look across the division at all of our current routes and to look at all of our ride times for our students. And then I asked her to create different scenarios. So perfect world, we had all the money we needed. This would get our kids most direct route, you know, in between. And this is skinniest type thing. And then in there was putting in those things. So if by chance the government stuck with the 2.4 kilometer, then are there ways, or did they then set up some type of parameters that we would apply so that actually students that aren't, if they don't have safe passageway to the school that are inside, then do they actually get the funding? So I have tasked Amy with that. So that's what we're going to look at, because ride times also are a concern. And so we kind of need to know, you know, what's the perfect world? You know, pick up one student, get them there. Of course, that's not quite the perfect, but you can get where I'm going with this. And so that's what I've tasked her with. So she has a big job, and we'll be bringing forward some different options that would come to the Transportation Committee first.
Stacy?
Stacy Buga, Ward 5. Yeah, I'm happy to be looking into this more seriously with lots of time to prepare. My only concern, I just want to bring it up now to make sure that it doesn't get lost in conversation anywhere, is that I think walk boundaries is something we need to look at, but with Morinville and probably in Gibbons as well, we have very significant safety issues with pedestrian safety. And that needs to be kept in mind if we are putting in walk boundaries or anything like that, that we must make sure that our partnership with our municipalities is tight and everybody's on the same page with that. So just something to keep in mind with those unintended consequences, that kids that should be safe walking to school may need some support from municipalities in that area.
Tasha?
I just want to say thanks, Stacy. That's a great point. And this is another example of where we need to advocate for joint ministerial cooperation. I mean, infrastructure, transportation, and education need to work together, just as education and AHS have a relationship. We need to build that through advocacy. So yeah, absolutely 100% agree. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. 6.13, Truth and Reconciliation Week in Indigenous Education. Jonathan? Oh, Shannon.
Thank you, Chair. Shannon Campbell-Requa, Director of Education Planning. I'm really excited to bring this forward for your information. So this year, because of the Indigenous education lead teacher, our Métis learning coach, and our Indigenous school counselor, we've been able to create a really robust week-long activity guide for all teachers district-wide. We are really proud of this work. And I bring it up in recognition that there are many school sites who've already done incredible work in this area, but this support really brings up the baseline for every educator district-wide. And just the ability to rely on resources that have been vetted with insightful participation has been already, we've gained feedback that it's been very valuable. We've also created a division website for teachers, which is a robust collection of resources. And we continue to streamline that and make it really effective so that educators can access that information. Also, we will have a really organized approach to focusing our efforts district-wide throughout the school year. And so every month there will be a focus. We're trying to stay away from themes. However, if we can really target our focus for resources, it'll give teachers and other educators in our buildings a way to organize the work that they will do throughout the year and not just in September and June. There is a list there of the themes this month, or pardon me, upcoming in October is Indigenous role models. So stay tuned for some exciting work in that area forthcoming. And administration is happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Pretty good. Sorry, Cindy?
I just have a comment that I really appreciate this working in the school, that all our schools are on an even level and there's access to resources across our division. Some schools are stronger with Indigenous culture than others. So I really appreciate that we're all on the same playing field and have access to resources across our division.
I was at Camilla visiting and I went into the library and there was a class in there and there was an Indigenous coach, I'll call her, reading Indigenous books to the kids all day. So that was kind of really cool. I learned a few things sitting down there too. So it was great. So there's lots of activities going on. Thank you. 6.14 communications report and annual plan. Lauren.
Thank you, Chair. Lauren Walter, Manager of Marketing and Communications. And I'll just share my screen with everyone as I walk through this because I think it's nice to have the visual. So I have two things. One is our annual communications report that I want to go through just to give everybody kind of a year at a glance. And then I also have the last month summary as well. So, okay. So the executive summary, I invite you to read through this if you have a moment. Nothing that doesn't already exist in our education plan or on our website, but something for me to come back to just to remind myself of the purpose of this plan, which is to show parents what a great job we do of preparing their children for success in the global community. So a few things we are introducing this year. We have the Sbs Blog, which is new. One aspect of it is through Instagram to direct parents and other interested community members to read more stories or find pertinent information. And then there's also the news aspect of our website where you can go to get kind of written stories on our kids and things like that. My other goal is to really connect with traditional media. So making sure that I have connections and people I can reach out to in all of our towns when we would like, others to circulate it, making sure I have connections in sort of the bigger media outlets, CBC, Global, things like that, so that I can tell them about all the great things that are going on and establish those connections this year is very important to me. Getting us on social media and expanding on all of the different platforms we use. So putting more on YouTube, putting some more in TikTok, and reaching a larger audience just by tapping into other platforms that are popular at the moment. Website updates, always working on our websites, always in contact with schools to ask what's not working, what are parents struggling to find, how can we lay this out better for our families to find information. And then this is just a goal for myself to really set sort of the standard of excellence in marketing communications for the province. I would really like for what we put out to have other divisions look and say, wow, we would really like to, do something like that as well. So that's just a little note for myself. This is our mission, vision, and values, as you all well know. So I won't take any time on that. I did a strength and weakness analysis. Mind you, I will note that this was taken from a report done in 2019. So obviously a lot has happened since then, but with the pandemic, our learning has looked a little different. So it's been tough since then to gather the same sort of feedback. So bear in mind, this is not totally current, but recent enough that it's still really valuable. So I have our strengths laid out here. This feedback was taken from internal as well as external stakeholders. So some of the things people really like about our division, unique programming, that we're accommodating, that we have great teachers. This is for me to come back to make sure that I'm still touching on these things and showing it off on our digital platforms to make sure that what's working is still visible. And then the weaknesses obviously are some points of improvement. One of the points is the division website, which is now totally different. So I won't worry about that too much, but making sure that we're always improving the website, like I mentioned, for parents to find things. Perception of academics is one. We are a very strong academic division. And I did note that that was some of the feedback is the perception. So a big thing for me is showcasing how wonderful our students are and how talented our students are, and how great our teachers are in preparing them to be successful. So that's a big thing for me, is just making that incredibly visible. And then there are a few other things, but I invite you to read them when you have a moment. I did a analysis of our neighboring divisions. So the 11 things that you'll see in the columns there are things that we offer. The highlighted items are things that other divisions also offer. So what you'll notice, of course, as to be expected, we do share things with other divisions and offer similar things, but there are quite a few things on there that we offer that our neighbors do not, and that's okay. Everybody's different, but it's for me to know, to say, what can we really showcase and make sure that we are making visible, so that if a parent is interested, maybe it'll draw them in, and maybe not necessarily in our county, but outside of it. So just a good list for me to come back to ask what makes us special, and what do I need to be really showcasing. So that's there for your reference if you'd like to give it a look over. This is the marketing strategy, so it's everything that I've just touched on. And again, I invite you to read it if you would like to. I'm just giving myself kind of timelines, monthly goals, allocating roles. So in making the actual marketing goals for the year, one thing that I did is I like to look at the factors that are going to contribute that are outside of my control, so that I can make sure that the goals are reasonable. So one thing I looked at is the population of our county. So it has declined in the last couple of years, which is just something for me to note when it comes to how much increase in enrollment can I expect to be possible. And then I, of course, next to it is compared to our SBS student population. So just something to come back to when we're setting goals, to say what's, possible and maybe what is beyond our scope. These are the 21-22 analytics. Facebook and Instagram did not allow me to go back further than the calendar year. However, these are, again, just for myself, so I can say, 6 months from August when I made this report, how are we doing? Do we have more impressions? Are we targeting a greater audience? What does our demographic look like? What areas of people geographically are we targeting? So this is all just for me, but again, for your reference, if you're interested. And then another thing I looked at too was our website analytics. Everything was pretty well on par in terms of like industry standard. The one thing I do want to improve, and you'll note it's underlined, is bounce rate. So a bounce happens when someone, and for those who don't know, because many of you might already know, a bounce happens when someone visits our website and doesn't engage with it. So they just go to the home page, the landing page, and then leave. So it is a bit higher, the industry standard, you'll note. Mind you, it's for e-commerce, not public sector, so it's hard to say, but this is the only data I could find. The average bounce rate is about 47%. Ours is 55, so it's a little high. And what that says to me is that maybe the layout of some of our home pages could be a little easier to navigate. So that's a good note for myself to say, how do we make sure that when parents come to our site, they see what they're looking for? So yeah, just something more for me, but interesting. Nice to know. Which brings me to my last point, which are my goals. So I would really like to increase registration by about 4.4%, which would get us back up to our highest registration numbers to date back in 2018. I really want to increase our social media engagement by about 50%, drive up web traffic by 35%, and then decrease that bounce rate by about 5.5%, just to get us to an industry standard, and hopefully get parents to engage, parents or guardians or the public, whomever, to engage a little more with our websites. Which brings me to the report for the last month, which I will move through quickly, I promise. So in the latter half of August and the first half of September, our focus has been on a few things. So the welcome back video, it's obviously very exciting that as the pandemic beginning to taper off and it's safer for our students and we can return to typical learning, I really wanted to do an exciting welcome back video and just convey how excited we were for students to be back in our building and returning to some sort of normalcy. One of the goals we discussed is wanting to kind of reach a larger audience with jobs and letting people know when we are hiring. So I've started doing a weekly check-in to see if we do have open positions and then posting what is on our social media. And it's been really effective. So in the last month, we've had about 1,000 clicks from social media to our job landing page, which is really great in terms of just letting people know that we are a great team worth joining. And then in the top half there, you'll see the little blog interface I created from Instagram. So it's a great kind of middle ground. If I post about something on Instagram and people want to learn more, they can click the link in our bio and then this is what it looks like. If you click that show me, it'll show you what it looks like. It's a very neat little place. So when you do click on the link in bio, it'll take you to if we have a story in the Gazette or it'll take you to the place on our website where you can look at our jobs. So it's just a nice little middle ground to help people find what they're looking for when they see that we are showing something on social media. And then introducing Reels and TikToks. Our schools have been so amazing with getting on board with this, and it's been a lot of fun to be out there interacting with the kids. It's definitely filled my bucket, but what's great is it's also been really successful. So I did a little reel with Landing Trails, Meet the Teacher Night, and they got 6,000 views. And then last week I was majorly one-upped by Lillian Schick, who got 30,000 views on one of their reels for pancake breakfast, which is fantastic. That was exactly what I hoped for. So yeah, showing lots of people how great we are. And then last has been that I really want to draw on because it's a big trend in the education world that I've noticed other divisions highlighting is outdoor learning. So new outdoor learning spaces that are going in. What does a day in our outdoor classroom look like? What kind of things are children learning when they're out there? So making evident how we utilize our outdoor space in our beautiful rural division. And then, yeah, so for your reference, also here are the different articles that we were featured in this month. And then upcoming events. Obviously, we're in the midst of Truth and Reconciliation Week, and then we have National Custodian Day coming up, as well as World Teachers Day. Yeah, and that's it. And the administration welcomes any questions.
Cindy.
I have just a comment, Lauren. I think you've showcased our division through a different lens. And it was time that we started to showcase our division through a different lens. So congratulations. I think it's great. I love all the hits on our website and people are going, I can't wait to see our school websites updated because I think they really need to reflect the demographics and the school culture. So I'm excited to see that happen.
Stacy.
Stacy Beaker, Ward 5. Yeah, that looks great and very thorough to tell us what we're expecting, because sometimes nobody likes surprises around here. We like to kind of know what's happening. I would suggest, if I know that often the communications officer joins our advocacy committee meetings so that we're all on the same page. But with some of your goals that you've highlighted there, and assuming that we have a student advisory committee created again this year, I would hope that you would be able to join our student advisory, because those are the people that we are really wanting to showcase. And I'm sure that they'd love to be involved too in some way. So just as an extra layer of stakeholders to really engage our student population. And then, of course, my one concern, because I dig deep, on a whole, I don't support large scale funding of marketing for education. I know some of our sister boards spend a ton of money, and I actually frown upon that. I don't think that that's a great use of education dollars. So I just want to, I mean, there was budget talk, but not really numbers in there. And I know that that's operational in scope. I just want to make sure that I think it's really exciting to get our name out there. And I think it's really important, the work that you're doing. But from my standpoint, I just want to make sure that we don't become what I don't approve of in other boards, which is, you know, billboards everywhere and movie theater intros and stuff like that seems excessive. So just to keep that balance in mind.
Trish?
Trish Marie Elliott, Ward 4. Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Lauren. I love the energy and the positivity that you're bringing, and making the website easier is really important, not just for parents, but for dinosaur trustees who can't find things. At our school council at Sturgeon Heights, I was amazed how many people had watched the Welcome Back video. And we all really liked it until the part where we soared over Mr. Chute and Miss Tremblay on the roof of the school, and then we loved it. So things like that are awesome, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Passion?
Tasha Oatwood McClay, Ward 6. Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off of what's already been said and say thanks. This is a great overview of the plans for the year. Are we going to get regular updates on where you are at with this plan? Because the best laid plans are great, but if you can't follow up and see how it's going or where it's going, we're kind of lost. Yeah, that's in the works.
Shauna?
Thank you, trustee Oakley McClay. It is a very good point. And so the communications position, it always has had a communications plan every year. It is, of course, its goal, as for every department. We set out what we want to do for the year. And so it was requested, the deputy superintendent thought that it would be great for the trustees to actually see what the operational side of communications is. So you will continue to get the monthly report, and then we will look at how does a timely update on things so that we actually can see what the input, the effect has been on the communications, that we will take that under advisement to look at what would be an effective way for how many times a year that the communication plan is updated to you, but you will continue to get the monthly reports. Thank you.
One last thing. I just wanted to comment something Stacy said, and that is the structure of Alberta education is one in which they promote competition amongst systems. And I can only assume that with the influx of charter schools, we're just going to see more and more of that. And so I feel very strongly that we will have to invest more in our communications and our marketing because of that. And it's not anything that anybody in this room can control. This is the environment that we exist in. So I guess I'm begging you to keep your mind open, because we will have greater pressures in the future. Thanks.
Okay, and I'll finish off. I'm quite excited about where we're heading. I love the plan. I'm just, every time I read one of these, I go, God, I got to get into social media.
Right.
So whatever help you can help me with, ladies, I'd be appreciated. Anyways, I really like the plan. I see it, and I don't mean it this way, but it's simplistic enough that I think it's achievable, and it's also big at the same time. Does that make sense? And I just really appreciate it. I've been here for a few years now, and it's the first time I've seen a true plan like that. So really good. And please, we need to brag. I kind of take Stacy's opinion too, in a higher level. We're faced at this today, and it's a shame that we have to compete like we do, but we have to. And the simplest way we can do that with the biggest effect is something that I definitely will promote. So thank you again, Lauren. And welcome. I don't know if we properly ever did that, but welcome. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, 6.15 monthly financial report. Liliana.
Liliana LeVay, Associate Superintendent, Corporate Services. So moving from funner things to more serious stuff. Sorry.
So we are providing monthly financial reports to the board, and this is as of August 31st, 2022, which is the last month of the year. And I would like to mention this upfront. This is a very preliminary report. A lot of adjustments go into year end, and the finance team is going to be working hard at it and to complete the audit process that wraps up our annual financial statements. So this is the analysis that I was able to provide as a interim report. The current preliminary for 21-22 is anticipated to be a 2.4 million surplus. And that's after the transfer to capital reserves of $750,000. To explain that, under the K-12 revenue, that's higher by 1.35 million, mainly due to targeted funding of 380,000 announced after budgeting cycle, COVID mitigation hold harmless funding of 1.3 million, adjustment announced in August 2021, a one-time funding of 28,000 that has been included in the budget for funds received from Alberta Ed to set up the legal public school. The reserve less the reserve that is going to be transferred to the capital reserve as approved by the board earlier in June. The funds that are intended to support O&M projects. So the board might remember that we had some mitigation strategies to support some of the funds that we anticipated as surplus. So those funds that were intended to be transferred to O&M, some of them have been transferred already, most of them have not. So that explains the deficit that's showing under O&M when you look at the Excel spreadsheet. Under the expenses, K-12 expenses are lower than budgeted by 1.46 million, meaning we spent less than anticipated. And those are mainly due to curriculum development. Textbooks were not, they were budgeted based on K-6 grades and all the core subjects. We ended up going ahead with K-3 math and English only. So that resulted in 419,000 surplus. The division has a shortage of EAs in PATH, had a shortage of EAs in the PATH program, resulting in 560,000 surplus. Later in year hiring, FNMI resources resulted in 327,000 surplus. This one is one of the biggest variances, the capitalization of certain expenses, such as the classroom ventilation project and the classroom display project, resulting in a little bit over $1 million savings. So what it means is instead of recognizing them as expenses in the year that they incurred, they're actually now capitalized, and we can only observe amortization over the next 5 years of the lifespan of those assets. That was a clarification that we obtained from our auditors just in the last couple of weeks, that mentioned that even though the items by themselves are under 5,000, which is our capitalization threshold, when it's part of a bigger project, we have to capitalize it, and that includes installation and all the additional costs. So that threw us off a little bit. The substitute teacher pool was budgeted on the same model as 2021 with contracted subs for each of the school. This model was disrupted on October 29, 2021, resulting in savings of 515,000. Some of it is not our intention, but we had difficulty securing subs. Higher than budgeted central instructional teaching resources, resulting into over expenditure of 1.59 million, offsetting a portion of the savings above. So this is where we budget all our teachers. So we actually did hire more teachers overall in the central instructional fund. Under operations and maintenance, revenue is higher by 283,000, due to transfers from K to 12. So these are for the projects completed that we actually funded O&M for it. And those were things like increased custodial services, weed control, grass cutting, snow removal, painting, and a few others. Expenses are higher by 1.23 million due to projects that are in progress but not quite finished, offsetting a portion of the board approved projects in March 2022. Transportation services. Revenue is higher than budgeted, mainly due to fuel price contingency program reinstatement allocation of 143,000. Expenses are higher than budgeted by 230,000, mainly due to the fuel price contingency, so offsetting the revenue. And the payments that we have given to contractors to offset their increased costs with insurance. System administration revenue is higher than budgeted by 213,000, mainly due to higher interest earned on our deposit accounts. Expenses are higher by 43,000 due to a variety of smaller items that add up to 43,000. Under external services revenues and expenses, we were lower overall due to one less secondment. And any remaining funds that are observed in the surplus will be transferred into the unrestricted surplus showing in the current year 22-23. I would like to remind that as the minister has approved our reserve strategy, this will actually require us to look at different alternatives to align this surplus with our intentions above and beyond what we already submitted to the minister. It is likely that we will require to submit another letter to the new minister.
Okay, thank you. I have one question. Just the division of shortage of EAs in the PUF resulting in 550K surplus. Sounds pretty high for me. So I'm just some talk about that. It's just we couldn't get these EAs, or Lisa?
I wouldn't say that we couldn't get them, Chair. I think that it was a delay in getting them filled. So because it was delayed some, then there was a little bit of a surplus. Also, we have done a lot of hiring, so a lot of the staff came in at a lower pay rate than perhaps what we had anticipated, because they would have been at the higher rate of pay.
Thank you, Shauna.
And I'll just add to that, if you remember that for pre-K for PUP kiddos, it's not like our end of September that, right? So we have till December 1st. And so that's the other thing, is if we keep getting the children in last year with COVID, a lot of our families with little children were really didn't know if they were sending their kids back. And so it took time. So then what happens is you're not paying the person for the whole year. You end up paying them for part of the year, right? Because you have up till September. So that's why it was an interesting year too, coming back with our pre-K, because COVID did have an impact on that. Parents were keeping their children home.
Thank you, Liliana.
Just to add to what was mentioned by Lisa and Shauna, we also started this enhanced process of hiring later in the year. If I remember correctly, it was November that we actually finalized our needs to run the special education program.
Okay, thank you. Trish?
I just want to comment on the operations and maintenance, the extra money that was spent on custodial services, especially the weed control and the grass cutting for the summer. I've had parents approach me at our Sturgeon Heights Welcome Back, and they really noticed the difference. And so I really appreciate that. I think it was an important expense, and thank you to that department.
Cindy?
Under operations and maintenance, the projects that we approved in March, some of them are still not finished. Can you tell me which ones and where we're at?
Liliana?
Summertime was very busy for our O&M team, and they had difficulties aligning all the projects that were planned. So most of the projects started in August. The ones that were finished was the painting and the roof. That's a capital project nonetheless, the roof at Oka Park, and the male lab. And we still have a significant number of projects that are still in progress. I would be happy to bring an update at our committee this afternoon. I do have this information, but I don't have it with me right now.
So that would leave the fencing, the field house, and a few others, correct?
I will bring an update.
Thank you.
Stacy?
Just a typo, I think, under operations and management. Are expenses higher by 1.23 thousand or 1.23 million? Just for clarification.
Juliana?
Million, sorry.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Liliana. I like this. Really do. Helps me a lot. Okay, thank you. Okay. Monthly IT report, 6.16. Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. Jonathan Conrad, Deputy Superintendent. Provided for your information is our slightly expanded monthly IT report. The comments on the front, I don't think would come as any surprise. IT very busy this time of year with password resets, and as new technology or returning technology comes back online, it might need a patch or it might need a security update. And so that's been the focus of IT right now, to get everyone back in, back on, and connected in their classroom. So a lot of those kinds of tickets as well, loft board not working, get it rehooked up, that kind of thing. And in the expanded report, you'll see a little more commentary beyond the Chromebooks that we own and the uptime about our major platforms. We've also included a little more information on printing across the division. It's something that we're trying to keep a better understanding on in terms of cost, but also is that service meeting what we need. And you'll also see a bit of a planning here in terms of evergreening, like the Windows evergreening. That's, evergreening is a concept that a device has a certain length of service. Usually 4 years is a standard time for a piece of technology. And you'll see that this in summer, if you're visiting your schools, trustees, you'll notice a lot of office staff had their desktops up evergreen through summer. And that was a big push in the 22 year that we're in right now. I'm prepared, administration's prepared to take any questions on this report.
Thank you. Any questions? It is one of the more exciting reports, Jonathan. Sorry, Tasha has one.
I just want to say that is incredible. The Konica Minolta multifunctional printers and the information provided there. I think we should share that with all the kids. How many trees do we consume? Our CO2 produced, equivalent bulb hours? I mean, we need to focus on that, and why not share it with the next generation who's going to be impacted by it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. 6.17, Administrative Procedure 526, Animal Supporting Inclusive Education. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Jonathan Conrad, Deputy Superintendent. It is clear and apparent that qualified animals can bring supports that are hard to find in other ways. I even personally have had the pleasure of working with training some of these amazing animals, and the needs that our kids have continue to expand, and some of those needs could be met with consultation and under guidance with a fully qualified animal. The reason why this AP took us about a year to build is we consulted other practices in other divisions. We talked to administrators, we talked through our counselors and groups. We looked at the requirements in Alberta to have a licensed animal, and the AP shared for your information here is a result of that, to ensure that when it is the right thing to have, that the animal meets certain clear standards for the wellness and health of our classrooms, our schools, and for the safety of everyone involved. Animals are fantastic, but they need to be fully qualified and fully certified to be part of a regular day in a school. I'm prepared to take, administration is prepared to take any questions.
Cindy?
I support this program 100%. I think it's important to have animals in school. They bring more to children than people realize. So thank you for looking into this.
Stacy?
Stacy Buga, Ward 5. I'm just curious, after going through it, how does it fit with our current, we have Boba at Nemeo School, who is there regularly and I believe is an approved certified dog. Will they now have to jump through, like, fill out this process? And then also, are we looking at potentially staff and administration putting forward these requests for a therapy dog into their classrooms? Or is this expected more to be coming from parents and supporting their kids directly?
Jonathan?
Thank you, Jonathan, Deputy Superintendent. Excellent questions and good example. While we were constructing this as well, we looked and ensured that Boba is and meets all of the requirements guided here in this AP. And this is to guide, those regular animals, not the one-off. Sometimes we will have someone come in with a short field experience, a petting zoo, that kind of thing. That's not what we're talking about here. We are, as you described, a qualified animal that's going to be a part of a regular school experience for a child, or if it's a regular school experience brought in by counselor, we're open to this. Boba is a good example, and certainly our counselors are looking at, is this a program that their school can support? Because you got to find a fully qualified animal and also a qualified handler. You can't, we all have great animals in our lives, but these have to be very well-trained and certified animals to be effective.
Thank you. I just got a quick question. Like, how big could this program get? Like, I'm just concerned that it gets too big in a school and too many animals. Jonathan?
I think it will be the size to meet the needs in our school, and with a clear policy like this, it's very challenging to qualify for and to have a fully certified dog. Just if I may share a personal insight, I worked with Dogs with Wings, one of the few qualified agencies in Alberta. We were one puppy trainer of 12 litter, and of those 12, only 2 made it on. And as a reject, our puppy still cost $5,000 to adopt because it was an amazing animal. So my comment here is this AP will ensure the right number of animals are working in the right way in our schools, as opposed to we love animals and we want our animal to be in school. This will ensure it isn't a runaway, but it meets the needs.
Great, thank you. Shauna?
Shauna Warren, Superintendent. I'm just going to speak to a little bit of history here. So the reason that we decided that we actually needed an admin procedure brought forward is this isn't a new thing. As you know, we are very passionate about trauma-informed practices, and we started the work with Bruce Perry a long time ago, and we have had schools that have had animals before. So it's kind of a multi-pronged program if you're looking at bringing in animals. So one, the not the lifespan of the animal, the service span of an animal in this type of work is very short. And so that's one thing, is that it's often 2 years. And if you ever were to go to a trauma school, many of these animals, it's 2 years and they're done, because these animals, as you know, they soak up everything. And so it's a high turnover that way. So that's one thing. As Mr. Conrad alluded to, it's not a little thing. It is insurance wise, et cetera. You have to make sure that all of the legalities, everything is, all the hoops are jumped through. So in the past, we've had this, that if a school brought forward that they were looking at doing it to implement a service animal into the school, we actually had a practice in place. But because it's been asked over and over and over, literally over the last 12 years. I think we've been doing this, talking about this. We decided it was time. We actually needed an AP in place so that schools weren't always just reaching out, which was basically ed services. And then we jumped through the hoops, let them know what they could do, A, B, C, or D. We finally decided over the course of last year that it was time to get an admin procedure in place so that people weren't always having to ask the same questions. So it's kind of multi-pronged because, again, as you know, students also have allergies. And so there's so many facets that you have to consider. And so I just want you to know this is not new to us. We have been doing this for years. It's just we've not had an admin procedure in place. We've had practices that we've followed, but we thought it was time to put it actually out there so people can find it easily and they actually know what the procedure is.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Jonathan. I like the program. I really like what you've done there. 6.18 Administrative Procedure 733 Certificated Staff ATA Educational Leaves. Lisa?
Lisa Lacroix, Associate Superintendent of Human Resources. You'll just see that Administrative Procedure 733, which is also attached to Policy 715, which you'll see later on, was reviewed. And the only things we have amended is to include consistent language throughout it. And it's included there for trustee information. Administration is prepared to respond to questions.
No questions. Thank you. 6.19 Administrative Procedure 871 Use of Personal Mobile Devices to Access Division Services. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Jonathan, Deputy Superintendent. Provided for information is an AP guiding a practice return many years ago, certainly when I joined the division. If it was deemed that a cell phone was necessary for a person to conduct business on behalf of the board, at that time you were allowed to either have a stipend or choose a device. We went away from that for a few years. There was a choice. You had to have a division cell phone. This AP is the guidance that we would use now if we were to allow someone to use their personal phone to conduct business. So you'll see some numbers on there, the percent of time that you need to use that device for division business and the stipend that you would qualify for should you choose that. But it is a choice. If the employee is deemed to need a cell phone but would rather have a division cell phone, that is still an option available to them. Prepared to take any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. 6.20 2022-2023 Superintendent Discretionary Fund. Donna.
Shauna Warren, Superintendent. So here is the monthly report as to where the Superintendent Discretionary Fund is at and the additional staffing that has been added. So the report that was brought to you at the August public board meeting, I gave you the summary that had an additional 3.25 teacher FTE and 1.4 QP FTE, which the total at that time was $400,830. And so since that time, since the last report to September 21st, we have had some additional staffing that has been added to two of our schools, which is Redwater School. So we did put in additional teacher FTE to support increased enrollment and support effective high school programming. And at Gibbons School, we had additional teacher FTE to add to support increased enrollment in their elementary classes. And so there you will see the expenditures to date. Again, administration is prepared to respond to questions.
Okay, thank you for that report. Any questions, comments there? Did I miss anything? Okay. 7.1 Chair's Report. It's been a busy month. I do want to talk a little bit about our minister. Myself and Shauna met with the Minister LaGrange, and we had a good conversation on our what we're trying to accomplish in Legal. And we also talked a little bit of why we've come to that point and some of the history. And That, we talked about transportation, we talked about, FOIP, like, if we get FOIP requests and they can come to us without any legitimate need, like someone can just ask and force it. And we are required to provide that FOIP request. But the problem with that is that it can cost up to, well, it can cost up to anywhere, but we're experiencing some $300,000-400,000. And there's a system in place that we talked to her about that maybe Alberta Education should look at to provide all divisions that would help with that, but it's costly. But we brought up some of that type of things that affect our, that truly affect our school, our division. And I always look at 100,000 as a teacher. That's how I always relate everything. And those type of things could mean 4, 5, 6 teachers to us. And also some of the legal costs that we face. And really, you know, I'm going to be brave and just say it, no fault to our own. And we end up still, no matter what, even if we're proven in court to be right in what we've done, we end up paying a lot of money. But when my concern more is when you drain the reserves down to 3 to 4% of your basic budget, and you're down there, and then those are things that those reserves now are really become very important to our day-to-day operation of our schools, teacher-wise, educational-wise, and maintenance-wise. So it starts to put a lot of strain on school divisions from some of these outside things. And basically what I was trying to do was hint that maybe the government should look at be taking these type of things over and looking after them. So that was one thing. I was really happy. I did talk about it a little bit there when we were talking about transportation, but during transportation, the funding of transportation is a review is needs to be done and needs to come to. And I was really happy that she recognized what we had put forward for advocacy on the 2.4 kilometers. So, and she actually seemed a little confident that there was something going to happen there on that. So let's wait and see. But it was a good meeting, a quick meeting. There was things that ASCA, we talked about ASCA, the funding for ASCA, which is our school councils. Total funding has been taken from them. I believe the funding was around 500,000. Don't quote me on that, but it was around $500,000 for the whole of all school councils throughout Alberta. And that was to provide training and resources and those type of things to these people that are volunteering to work in a school to make it better. And so a question on that, and said that we weren't too happy about that. And she said, well, that's a 2 hours talk. So we didn't get into the details of it. So also been meeting quite a bit at, I'll just go through my list here, but meeting at Camilla School for Civil Design. The finishing of the Camilla School, it's a beautiful school and there are a lot of good things, but outside is flooding. We get 0.2 of an inch and the whole school grounds is flooded. And I mean flooded, foot of water. There's pools and everything all over the place. And really what that has come, why that's come ahead is when they first started 4 years ago, Sturgeon County would not allow a level of extraction of water from our area into ditches or wherever it may go at a very slow rate, very slow rate. So what happens is they tried to engineer and put a system in place that would store water and slowly, just like big weeping tile, basically. And that's not working. So we were, it became a couple of months of some meetings and some aggressive behavior on my part. And anyways, our government infrastructure has seen the need to make this a new project and refund it and look at it in a different way. So I've been meeting with the county a lot. I met on Saturday again with the counselors out there, a couple of them. Just, it's better to see it than to talk about it. So to get on that, we need them to be a big part of the solution here. So doing lots of that. I've met upcoming in the near future is our superintendent evaluation meeting. So I met with the contractor consultants on that and talked to them about how they would help us in that process. And we're very close to making sure that happens. Policy committee meeting, committee of the whole meeting, joint meeting with G Sacred and Town of Morinville on crosswalks. Stacy brought a little bit of that up earlier. So at the beginning, the mayor of Morinville just wanted to meet with the two chairs of both school divisions in the area and basically get the need out for something to happen here to protect our kids crossing roads. So it was a very high level meeting and there was some future things coming out. We're starting to look into what other places. St. Albert had a few accidents and serious accidents, so they've revamped their process. So there was someone going to go away and look at what they've done and others, and then the idea was to start to get it out to the schools. And I should go back a little bit. One of the things, and it made sense, is even if the town of Morinville today said go, we're putting lights or whatever we're doing, it would be a 2-year process. By the time any destructive approach to it and all the input and everything else, it would be 2 years. So they're trying to what do we do in the next 2 years? So a lot of educational things were talked about, a lot of things to look up, see how others are doing it, and that type of thing. And there'll be future meetings. There is a town hall type meeting on October. Sorry, I don't know my paperwork. Stacy, do you know? October 26th, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, there's a town hall meeting on it, so I'll be attending that and see where we as a division can help, because we do have school kids crossing the streets in our area, and we've had a few be hit here now and hurt. So there is a need to straighten this out. School council meeting, Camilla. We sadly, but we had a discipline hearing this month. Professional development, understanding biases. I found out that I have no biases. I have a lot of biases, but anyways, went to that. Advocacy and building, maintenance, finance, and human resources. Advocacy committee, building, maintenance, finance, and human resources, transportation committee meetings. Some of those are to be had today. Public board meeting today. I'm going to go on Thursday to this community walk at Alexander First Nation for Truth and Reconciliation. We have Rotary meetings, meeting with the county. Oh, I talked about that. And I also, that was another thing I did on this whole civil work, because I went to the River Kabar Ag Society meeting and represented third school division so that they were as informed on what's happening in the future around there, because it actually ran back into their facility too, the flooding. So they've got some big concerns too. And I think that's me, and various administration meetings, guys. I'm not going to list all of them. So that was my month. I'm sure I forgot something. That's it. Any questions to me? Well, trustee reports. We'll start at Janine.
Okay, my turn. After summer, it's been pretty busy. So August 30th, I attended part of the Welcome Back event. Couldn't stay for all, unfortunately. I heard the PD was amazing. I had the policy committee meeting, committee of the whole. I went to the Welcome Back breakfast at Redwater School. And theirs was the same time as Oka Park. So instead of going to Oka Parks, I made borscht with the K-4 kiddos and the seniors. I made it clear that I am not a senior. But that was really fun, cutting up the beets and all that stuff. I attended a TIBA meeting, ASBA Zone 2-3 online. I walked with the kids from Redwater and Oka Park at the Terry Fox run. We walked this week. I had Oka Park School Council. I'm here today. And then tonight at Redwater School is the Meet the Teacher night. I think that's it.
Thank you. Tasha.
So activities unique to me were the Guthrie Parent Council, where I could not believe we had 18 parents. I know. I was like, wow. And then at Nemeo Parent Council, again, a huge turnout, and half of them weren't there because they got sick. So I'm not sure where we're gonna hold the meeting if it continues like this, because the library is busting at the seams. The unconscious bias by Franklin Covey last week was really good. I'm always shocked at how many bias, like this is not the first time I've done it, but how many times I do it and I'm like, God, I still have that same bias. I'm not learning. Anyway, it was very, very well done. Meet the teachers events went well. And I think that's kind of it. And today will be committee meetings.
Irene.
Irene Gibbons, Ward 7. I'm not going to go through my list, but I will follow up Tasha's understanding bias and unleashing potential PD. It's okay that you still have those biases. It's how you, what was the word?
I fell asleep.
It's what you do with them.
Yeah.
And it's in a positive way.
It's acknowledging.
Yeah. So yeah, committee meetings, Cal. And it looks like it's going to be a beautiful evening for a football game. So Sturgeon Composite High School is playing tonight in St. Albert. Come out and cheer them on. I'm not going to say how they're doing with their record because I do not want to jinx it. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Irene. I just want to mention something because Tasha brought up too. At Camilla, when I went to the parent council, they had their elections at that. There was 22 parents there actually. And basically most of the board was getting renewed. And there was hands going up left and right. I was saying, oh, how are we going to replace all these people? And then I was just shocked. Well, maybe not shocked, but you know what I mean? Like it is a good, River Kabar is a great community when it comes to volunteers. It's a really good turnout. Trish.
Trish Marie Elliott, Word 4. So my September attendances are posted. I won't go over everything except the ones that apply to me. There was the Sturgeon Heights School Council. As always, we had a good turnout, and I wonder if all these good turnouts might be based on a couple of things, because at Sturgeon Heights, the outgoing chair actually read Helen Lawrence's letter, which was awesome. And I think that helped inspire some people. And perhaps also our communications is helping us get more people out. So thanks to both of you. At Sturgeon Heights, again, we had a good turnout. We always do. And we filled most positions and everything appears to be off to a good start at that school. I also attended the Sturgeon Comp Meet the Teachers Night, which was awesome. I got to speak to students and parents and staff, and it was very nice. And after that, we had the first school council where they filled some of the positions. The parents are super excited about football and grad. And school enrollment is up. I think we're at 805 plus at the comp there. They have the school resource officer who is in a couple of days a week. And the principal, the ATA rep, mentioned that the ATA is organizing a Stand Up for Education rally at the Ledge. I believe it's for October 22nd. And I'm really interested to hear more about this and see what the focus and direction of the rally is. Another great conversation we had was, how do we attract academic students to the comp, which has a great reputation, but more perhaps for the trades? One of the questions was, how are our academic students doing? Are they getting into their fields of post-secondary? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So I think we are providing the programs and the support that is needed to our academic students. That's a big yes. But I think as a board, what can we do as a board is we have to continue to proactively engage with and build relationships with members of our community. We're really lucky here in Sturgeon. We have the Villeneuve Airport, which is a huge growing industry, and we have Alberta Heartland, which has all sorts of new technologies. They have carbon capture and storage, they have hydrogen power, and so we have to make sure we're engaged with these people to know, get guidance from them. What sort of programs do our kids need to be successful in these upcoming technologies? And I think if we continue to do that and we provide the proper programs, that is really going to be a big draw. So I guess that was about it from there, and I'll talk a bit more about PSBA at that point in the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you, Trish. Stacy.
Stacy Vigo, Ward 5. I've submitted my list of things I did, so you can go through that. Got to serve hot dogs at Four Winds for Birds of a Feather Day, which was great. And the video that came out of that was so much fun. It made me want to be a student at Four Winds. I'm like, oh, I want to play. I was able to take a tour of the new Learning Center and SPVA space in Gibbons, which I stopped by again yesterday, and they're almost done. There's a lot of paint going on, so it's still a work in progress. But it's a great space. If you have a chance to go check it out, I think it's going to work really well. When I stopped by yesterday, there's a couple of the Learning Center kids, which has now been open from grade 8 to grade 12 with the principal's advisement. And one of our grade 8 students was there. And so I kind of chatted with him about, you know, how this is going now that he's not virtual academy, he's not homeschool, he's not in school, he's actually Learning Center, and it's through modules. And he said that it's way better, and he's understanding and he's focusing. And because kids learn differently, I think that's great. And staff is there, and virtual academy seems to be functioning. I was there the first day, and our virtual academy had no internet, which was an interesting challenge, but it worked really well. Space was made here so that the teachers could teach out of our central office, and everything kind of, despite hiccups, everybody worked as a really good team, and they're feeling quite supported. Yeah, disappointing numbers with the virtual academy, but there's still value in what we're doing. And the way it's adapting, it's really accommodating students how they need to learn. And so I think what we do well is really move with our families. So I'm confident that one way or another, we're going to make sure that our kids are all learning. So that was promising. I also attended their parent count or their school council for the learning centers or alternative learning. I'm not sure what the name of that school is exactly yet. But it was really great. We had a few parents step up to join the parent council. They're doing field trips. They're doing full school outdoor classroom this week, well, today actually, at our outdoor classroom space. I'm blanking on the name, I apologize. With a focus on truth and reconciliation. And that's for all the virtual academy kids as well as the Learning Center kids could join that. So it's great to see those focuses from the division are coming through all of our programming, including our alternative ones. And our new chair of our parent council is also was a former director at the Military Resource Center. And so there's a lot of information that she can bring to the table and connections to be made, and to make sure that those outreach programs are critical and a great resource for military and families that are coming in and coming out during the year. So I was really excited to see that grow as well. I was able to attend the Morinville Adopt a Family Golf Tournament. This, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the group, but they have been, I don't know how many years, it's been quite a few years. Last year, I think they supported 60 or 70 families in Morinville, Sturgeon County area with a full Christmas. So everyone in the family got gifts, everybody in the family got stockings and food, and nobody was left out. And a lot of our students are benefiting from this every year. So I was really happy to be able to to help out and hang out on the longest putt hole for them. And I attended the Mornville Rendezvous Club 50th anniversary across the street there. They had invited me as a trustee because we are one of their largest renters of their space, which is how they gain income. And I learned a lot about the history of the Rendezvous Club. And they actually started out in an old schoolhouse that was given to them because they kept getting bumped around. And it's just a lovely group of people at the Rendezvous Club. And so I was really happy to support them. And they were really happy to have somebody there from Sturgeon as well. And sorry, EMPS, I did attend their parent council. This was at early in the month. And so the construction in the drop-off lane finally wrapped up, I think, last week. So there's one small drop-off lane for kids and it had a giant hole in it blocking the crosswalk as well, which was a challenge for beginning school, but it is now complete. I double checked there, and construction of the portables was just getting finished up. Like I mentioned earlier, the learning coach has been really great with sharing what she's doing. And it sounds like it's going well with the additional assessments that are going on. Everything's going smoothly, and she's got her own classroom space with resources that other teachers can access as well. So they seem to have a good system going. And apparently now the town of Mornville is adding soccer nets into the field behind MPS, which is a really great collaboration and making sure that, you know, the kids, the community kids, as well as our students are having access to some great resources. And that's.
Cindy Briggs, Ward 2. I'm not going to go through my list. I'll just tell you a couple of my highlights. The highlights were going to all 4 of my schools this month and all the hustling and bustling and a few little hiccups here and there, but our students and staff are very resilient in everything that's going on. I have a Bon Accord Community School parent meetings tonight, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm sad to say that Lillian Schick is struggling to get parents for their school council, so maybe our communications manager can help out a little there and we can get them on there. But other than that, it's everything's great.
Thank you. Any questions on anything that was reported? Tasha?
It's not a question, but I feel like I should bring it up to everybody here because I suspect that it's going to filter through. At Nemeo, there is well, they've always been concerned, but now there is an active group of parents who are working on getting the sidewalk, I air quote sidewalk, because it's not really a sidewalk, between Nemeo School and Sturgeon Composite High School. They actually really passionate about this sidewalk. So I tell you all this because I suspect this particular group of parents will get what they want. So I said, we can support you. We've brought it up at county meetings. We've brought it up to transportation in the past, Department of Transportation. And I said, if I could help, I would, and we'll keep in touch with them on that.
Thank you. Okay. Everybody's good. 7.3 Advocacy Committee. Who's going to report on that?
We haven't met yet for our
Okay.
first meeting, so we don't have a chair yet.
Okay. Again, for everybody on virtual and this is a lot of these meetings are just happening this afternoon for the first time, so that'll be a common thing. Building and Maintenance Committee, same thing. They're meeting this afternoon. Finance and
Yeah, we have not met yet either.
okay. Policy Committee has.
Ooh, we met.
Yeah.
Policy Committee had their first meeting September 14th. We've discussed policy 700, which is coming up later in the schedule. And I am the chair this year for the Policy Committee.
Great, congratulations. Thank you. Transportation Committee, same thing. The meeting will be this afternoon. Unless somebody has anything on that. 8.1 Alberta School Board Association Representative. Janine.
That is me again. We had our first meeting, Zone 2-3 meeting on Friday, September 23rd. I had to miss a bit of the meeting to attend former trustee Cole's funeral, but we talked about just the amount of advocacy in meetings that ASBA as a parent organization has with different ministers and different partner organizations. Their president and vice president report was 45 minutes of just meetings that they've had. And then there was no PD. We did a word cafe in the afternoon, World Cafe, which is actually a really good exercise on just like the different functions within Zone 2-3, which helped me to understand what the different committees do and all of that. I find ASBA Zone 2-3 super informative. The next one is October 21st, maybe 28th. I don't really know. And then the registration for ASBA's fall general meeting is out, I believe. Is it? I thought I had seen something about it. And in November. Alberta, ASBA is hosting the Canadian School Boards Association annual meeting next July in Banff. So I know they sent out information if you wanted to attend about hotels and stuff like that, which are almost all booked, but if we're interested in sending or going or whatever, the information's out there.
Thank you. Any questions? Stacy?
Can I add? I know Janine was on the road traveling for some of the meeting. I'm the alternate, so I was also online for most of it. I just wanted to note that along with all of the meetings that ASBA has been having, they've got a road plan of what their advocacy is doing for the next kind of 4 stages. And right now they're meeting with all of the potential leaders of the UCP party. And then they're going to be meeting with, of course, the potential candidates for the election next year. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that they're creating a trustee toolkit that's going to come out early spring, so like February, March next year, to guide us in when we're talking to candidates, what are some really key issues that ASBA on a whole is looking for, and what kind of discussion points and stuff boards may be interested in having when you're talking to your political candidates, because some of these, I mean, out here, not everybody's going to get the big hardball questions like they would maybe in a bigger center. So it's great that they're coming up with this toolkit that will give a shared kind of agenda, I guess, to bring up with some of the political candidates. And I also thought that it was really important that that World Cafe, where they're talking about all the different committees that Zone 2-3 has, they're really investigating the value of it and making sure that everything ASBA does and Zone 2-3 does is targeted for governance and it's appropriate for our time, and making sure that they're not wasting money on per diems, they're not wasting money on PD, they're giving things that are valuable. So I thought that was really interesting that they are definitely kind of doing an audit of their system to make sure that it's efficient and working. And there was an Alberta education update. I don't know if you caught that one. One thing that I thought was interesting was 64 boards have requested to access their reserves in the next budget. So everybody's doing the same thing as we are. So in case anyone questioned that, I think we all figured that. But that's.
Thank you. Any questions? Trish?
My question is about the couple of letters we got from other divisions, one of which was the St. Thomas Aquinas Roman Catholic Division, regarding the new model of public sector compensation. So apparently that information came through ASBA, so I'm wondering if we have any information on what this new proposed model of public sector information looks like, because I don't know what they're talking about.
I can comment on that, unless Stacy and Janine have something. Okay, well, I was wondering, you know, I'll be honest with you, as a chair, I sent out those first two letters to you guys that I received. Then I went, maybe, what the heck's going on here, really, you know? So there was a bill that was passed by our Alberta government on public sector workers' wages, how they're compensated. And so I'm just reading that right now. I'm reading the bill, just the bill that the government passed. And I can report on that after the next time we meet, but I don't think it digs into our teachers as of yet. It's more seem to be leaning to more just to public sectors within. Okay, I guess I must be saying something wrong. I got hands going up. Shauna.
Shauna Warren, Superintendent. No, you're not misspeaking. It's just that because Lisa has attended some of these meetings, she can just give the general overview if you would like.
That would be great. Thank you. Because I've just read a little bit of it so far.
Just as a quick summary for it, so it does not affect any of the unionized employees. It only affects the non-unionized employees. So basically what they're talking about is trying to create an association so that they basically have some say in the increases in amount of compensation that we would be able to, as school boards, give our non-unionized members. So that's in a nutshell, kind of what they're all talking about. And so some of the letters that you see are school divisions writing a letter saying they don't want their hands to be tied because sometimes there's recruitment issues. So you're talking about positions, your senior administrative positions, this is our custodians, caretakers, all of the central office staff. So that's what they're talking about. The government basically would be the ones telling us the minimum and maximums of the salaries for those people. So it's almost like a union, but not.
Sasha.
Lisa, is this an extension of, or it seems like an extension of the superintendent salary cap that came in a few years ago? Is this sort of them expanding that across groups?
It is a combination of that, and then I would almost say a combination of what TIBA does as well. So it's an extension of what TIBA does on behalf of the teachers, you know, also mandates that were given for other unions. So this is kind of another section where we would be given a mandate.
Okay, Shauna.
And just to finalize, when you go to search it, you're not going to find anything because again, they're gathering information right now. So nothing's in the long meeting that Lisa and I were in just the other day, just listening to this. It's the process they're gathering information right now. And so that's why boards are trying to get their input in. But there's nothing been passed or anything. And I do apologize to the board chair because I wanted to connect with you to update you also on that after Lisa and I had attended that last meeting.
Yeah, and I will check into this further because I'll be honest with you, I never heard a word about it until I got those letters. Maybe I missed something, but I went back and a lot of emails and that, and I didn't see anything. So I could have missed something, but from what I understood, I never heard anything about it until these letters started coming. So, but we'll get it all figured out. Okay. Any other questions on that, Trish? Does that answer you? Okay. Public School Board Association of Alberta representative. Trish.
Trish Marie Elliott, Ward 4. The SBAA, the AGM is coming up on October 12th to 14th. Everyone who is planning on attending should be booked by now. One quick question, that is the same day as our committee of the whole meeting. Is there any way we could possibly bump that up maybe an hour so we can all get to the SBAA on time for October? Maybe something we can look at. Our PSBC, the next meeting is November 16th to 18th. Registrations are open for that. I think Tasha, Irene, and I are going to be attending that. There was an interesting article in the Journal. This was Saturday, September 24th, written by the PSBAA president, Dennis McNeil. And it was titled 3 Ideas to Improve K-12 Education in Alberta. And just a brief summary. The first idea was to expand specific education funding for pandemic learning loss to include all grade levels, instead of just the targeted ones that we have now. The second idea had to do with the ASCA survey, which looked into the effects of COVID on students' academic achievements and their social and emotional well-being. And the second idea was proposed to follow this up with a broader, nonpartisan consultation that includes all provincial education partners, locally elected public school board trustees, teachers, superintendents, school council reps, government, parents, students. They would all be among those who could and should be at the same table. And together, we believe these stakeholders could arrive at concrete ideas and solutions to help us move forward and thrive together. And their third idea was to bring charter schools back under the public school system. So that's just a condensation of the article. I will try to post that to our Google Drive, as well as the PSBAA-PD, which was the Franklin Covey unconscious bias presentation. It was a great presentation. We had some good discussions, and I have some screenshots and notes to share with you. So I will put that up shortly. Any questions for PSBAA?
Thank you. Stacy?
Sorry, I guess just a comment. Yeah, I really wanted to attend that unconscious bias and they wouldn't record it for me. They wouldn't share anything with me. So if you can share it, that would be superb.
And I had asked because I have been fighting to get summaries from PSBAA for all of their PD or presentations so that we can share it with our board members. And I guess Franklin Covey is very, what's the word? Proprietary about all of their information. So I was told a big no, but I had someone, and I won't name names, who was doing screenshots all along. So I'm going to try and post that to Google Drive. And I do have about 8 pages of notes, so I'll try to condense that and get that on there as well for y'all. But yeah, that was disappointing. So it's nice when they can at least share their presentations.
Yeah, and then it was one of the things I got out of there is the courage to reframe. Basically, how you say something when you have a bias and how you reframe it to have a positive approach instead of a negative approach. So there was some great stuff around that. So thank you, Trish. Any questions there? New business, 9.1, 2023-2024 school calendar. Sorry, Lisa.
Attached is the recommended final draft or calendar for the 2023-2024. It was approved in principle on March 23rd of 2020. You'll see a summary of all the comments that was received, both from staff and parent and guardian responses, as well as the teacher board advisory committee response. And a motion is required. Administration.
Any questions on the calendar proposed for 2023-2024? I always say if you wait, somebody will say something. Okay, can someone make a motion that we accept what's presented as that calendar for 2023-2024? Tasha? Can you make that just please?
I wanted to motion it and then I forgot to talk. I motion that we accept the 2022-2023 calendar as presented.
Can you try again?
Oh, I gotta get there. Hang on, Joe.
23-24.
23-24 school calendar as presented.
Thank you, Tasha. All those in favor? Okay, thank you, unanimous. Questions? Sorry, Trish, go ahead.
So I guess the next step is to present this to our parent councils and it's done already.
Yeah, it's. But we've had it out to our parent councils already
Yeah,
too.
this one out.
Principals have presented it and. Okay, thank you. I missed questions there. Any other? Does somebody have any questions there? Okay. 9.2 borrowing resolution increase. Liliana.
Thank you, Chair Liliana Lavecon, Associate Superintendent, Corporate Services. The board recalls that that the board approved a borrowing resolution in June of 2022 for 3.5 million. It came to our attention that during the month of June, it's a high expenditure month for our schools. For reviewing the reserves carried by the schools, and they proceeded with a lot of purchases during that month. So for background information, the borrowing resolution amount refers to 3.5 currently, which is 3 million for a line of credit, operating line of credit, and 500,000 for our credit card access, which is a purchasing card basically. So although we pay our purchasing cards every month, the period from the time we purchase to the period we actually pay the statement is considered a borrowing instrument. So in June, we exceeded our 500 limit, so we were required to make off-cycle payments. So we bring our purchasing cards to a level that's manageable and allow our principals to continue to access their reserves. So we've been working with the bank during this time, and they've allowed us to proceed with your approval to 4 million borrowing resolution, of which 3 million is an operating line of credit and 1 million is for purchasing cards.
Any questions? Any?
This would because like in summer, we're buying new roofs and stuff like that, or these purchases, right? Or upgrading classrooms.
Liliana.
This is mostly when the schools prepare for the upcoming school year, or they have major purchases like gym displays. One of the gym displays, it costs between 50 to 75,000. So they do have bigger expenses happening in June. Normally throughout the year, we don't surpass the 500, but in order to mitigate our highest point of purchase, we're proposing to move to 1.
Trish.
Marie Elliott, Ward 4. I hate paying interest. It's a big waste of money and I never want to pay it. So are there any interest payments associated with any of these purchases?
Liliana.
There is no interest associated with the purchasing cards. Should we access the line of credit, we would, but we never had to in the last few years.
And just a little bit of information, and Liliana, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing I remember from the last term too is it never had to be used, but why the operational is so big is that if there was ever a delay of getting the money from the government or something like that, and we had to put out a payroll, we would have to use that to do it. And then we've never had to use that, but it could be a 1 day or 2 day event there that we needed that borrowing capacity for that. Okay, so that's a huge thing to understand on the operational side. Okay. 9.3, 2022, 20. Oh, you need a motion. Okay, who wants a motion then? So we accept this presented. Trish? Any questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Liliana. 9.3, 2022-2023 Council of School Councils meeting. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Jonathan Conrad, Deputy Superintendent. Administration is seeking your direction through motion on the arrangements for the annual Council of School Councils meeting. As you're aware, this is an opportunity for yourselves and our school council chairs and vice chairs to come together, have some informal meeting and visiting and connection time, and work through a short agenda. Apologize that there are so many options, so I'll try to highlight really what we're trying to seek is first, what is the date that is most acceptable to the board? So we're looking at October 25th or November 14th. So consider the date. And then the next consideration is the style of venue. Should we come to a hosted space like the Coronado Room where we have light refreshments, could be, some fruit trays, some meat trays, meat and cheese, that kind of thing to help with the visiting. And then we have that short agenda. Or would you like a plated meal at a local restaurant here? We're suggesting the bistro has been accommodating for us in the past. So I would ask that the board consider discussion now on what date is most appropriate and what venue you feel is most appropriate for your meeting to meet with chairs and vice chairs of our school council.
Thank you. So the two dates put out are October 25th and November 14th, I think you said, yeah. Tasha.
Okay, I honestly think that the earlier the better. Just from talking with the two boards that I attend, they're pretty new. They've got lots of good ideas, but they're unsure because they don't know what has worked before, what doesn't work. And they were pretty keen on knowing when we were doing this at the very first meeting. So I prefer October 25th. I also, there's benefits and detriments to both of the options regarding light snacks and a sit-down meal. But after 2-3 years now of not being able to meet in person, I'm kind of leaning toward a sit-down so that we can first let them know how much we appreciate their participation, but also kind of to celebrate the fact that we are together again. My thoughts. Thanks.
Judy.
The date says, I would like a combination of the bistro, but like a buffet here, like we used to do for our board meetings. So we can just grab our food, have a working dinner while we're meeting, because between 5:30 and 7:30, people are hungry. So light snacks doesn't quite cut it, but I don't think a sit-down meal, 3 courses is too much. So the bistro cater something here would be my perfect medium.
Stacy.
Yeah, I agree that my concern with the sit-down meal is that this meeting is really about networking. And if you've got the people who know each other sitting with the people who know each other, you don't really get that. Whereas if we can move around a little bit, I think it engages better conversation than being sat at a table with the person next to you.
I agree. October 25th. I think I'm married for 37 years that day. But I mean, my wife's used to that. Why not? So anyways, October 25th works for everybody. Okay. Happy anniversary. Yeah. Okay. And then I agree with you, Jonathan.
Sorry, you're continuing, Chair. I was just going to.
I was just thinking the meal. I agree with everybody. I think kind of a buffet, go up and get it in a working while we're eating type thing. We've done it in the past and it's been very successful. So, and we're at supper time too. So it's good to appreciate those volunteers that do a lot for us. You need a motion. Go ahead, somebody. There we go, Irene.
I would like to make the motion that the Board of Trustees approve that the 2022-2023 Council of School Councils meeting take place in person at the Frank Robertson Education Center on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, starting at 5:30 p.m. with buffet style meal and networking.
Okay, any questions on that motion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
9.4 organization chart revision. Shauna.
Shauna Warren, Superintendent. Over the summer, we did have our Associated Corporate Services on leave. So at that time, we had temporarily, we moved IT under Ed Services. And just so you know, historically, IT has shifted around, and this is like over the past 20 years. This is nothing new. And so we are proposing that would like to see that technology actually remains for the remainder of this school year and potentially moving forward, that we do, that we keep technology services underneath education services. We do feel as a team that, as you know, education is first and students are first. So by putting technology underneath education, they are then part of that department and have team meetings. And so when we're looking at evergreening or anything that we're doing, any type of technology development, that way we're always ensuring the education lens. So that is the request from administration. And I actually do require a motion for that.
Okay. Any questions? Someone want to motion that? Masha?
Pasha Otway McLean, Ward 6. I move that the Board of Trustees approve the organizational chart revision as presented at the September 28th, 2022 public board meeting.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. 9.5, policy 700, superintendent of schools. Lisa.
The, policy 700 superintendent of schools has been amended to align with the superintendent leadership qualification standards. It was brought to the policy committee. I believe it was September 14th. Excuse me if the date is wrong. So it just is a better alignment, and all superintendents in the province have one standard to meet. It has 7 different competencies. And so we did look at our previous superintendent role, and we ensured that those aligned with the SLQS in some way. There was a couple of amendments made at the policy committee, and I believe that it is now in its final draft format, and a motion is required.
Thank you. Any questions? Someone move that, please. Stacy?
Just before I make the motion, which I can do, I just want to comment and say that I appreciate the notes from the policy committee being included in there. And I personally, I see what our intention was, I think, with policy, and I think it's great. So in that vein, I move that the Board of Trustees approves policy 700, superintendent of schools, as presented at the September 28th, 2022 public board meeting.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. 9.6, policy 715, educational leaves of professional staff. Lisa.
As noted, when we were discussing the AP 733 above, the policy 715 was reviewed. It just fell under the cycle of review, and it was sent to the policy committee back in May 25th of 2022. And there are just some minor changes to the policy as you'll see below, and a motion is required.
Thank you. Any questions? Someone make that motion, please. Janine?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve policy 715, educational leave of professional staff, as presented at the September 28, 2022 public board meeting.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Any unfinished business? Any notice of motion? Any other information someone's forgotten about? Just love to get it out right now. Okay. Comment and question period. Anything from ATA and QP? Think they're on, are they? No. Okay. Anything from community members? Thank you. And anything from media? We're gonna have to start some kind of controversy or something.
It's good.
Hey,
No, thank you.
no, thank you. Any requests for information? Thank you. I need a motion to go in camera. Dasha,
That we go in camera.
thank you. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you for everyone that was involved today. And we really appreciate it. A lot of good information today, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.